There you go.
Hello. You're back in your office. I can tell
I
by the
am.
bad fluorescent lighting.
Yeah, and also I don't have a camera over my main monitor. It's off to the side here, but
Gail, Craig,
there.
Hello, Jim.
notice that humidity went up about 15% in the matter of a few minutes just a short time ago. It's really comfortable
really?
out there right now. Jesus.
Yeah, I hear thunder in the distance.
Yeah, I'll have to take if it really gets close, I'm gonna have to take a short mini break to unplug all my TV antennas and all the rest of it. I don't want to go through what I went through back in June when I got wiped out literally by electrical activity here.
Hmm.
The lightning hit a tree out in front of my home, about 50 feet away from the and then it went right along the ground. Carved a furrow in the ground, hit the foundation of the house, and fortunately, my computers here in my studio were on AC line conditioners, highly recommended, incidentally. But the TV was not, and the FM tuner and all the antennas pointed towards Boston and to the south, everything got just totally wiped out. So, and a whole lot of other stuff too. So I'm careful, but these storms, you never know.
Yeah.
There he is, Grand Septon.
And unmuted.
Yeah.
I hate to be muted. Hello, everyone.
Hello, hello. Oh, good. There's Steve. I was worried y'all didn't get the last minute Zoom change there.
Are you really somewhere else, Gail, or is that a somewhere else picture?
No, it's totally faked. I've been experimenting with new Zoom backgrounds.
Okay.
It kind of looks like, I don't know. It kind of looks like Los Angeles.
Yeah, flat.
Doesn't it look like Los Angeles a bit?
Craig, I think Los Angeles is a little boring. I just want to say.
Yeah, except you wouldn't be up that high in Los Angeles. In downtown LA, maybe. But
That's true.
Okay, because of earthquakes, because of the last earthquake, Craig?
No, there aren't much tall buildings in general.
Tall poppies.
With the exception of downtown, where they've decided it's okay, but they make them very swayable.
Ah, swayable. Right. Okay. Yeah. That wouldn't reassure me in an event.
It certainly freaks people out, but it's better than having them not be swayable.
Yeah. There's so many good things there's so many other things to be scared of that I think earthquakes probably is pretty low, even in Los Angeles.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't worry about it.
All right. Well, welcome everyone. Hope the last minute Zoom address change wasn't too stressful. This whole sharing of Zoom accounts that the town does works mostly well, except when you do a non-regular meeting like this.
So we're using the town account right now?
Yeah. I have a pro account, but the problem is that you have to pay a lot extra for the recording capabilities.
Oh, yeah.
So, and we have to record everything.
Well, the recording that takes place. Do you have to pay for that as you do with another account, because it's on Zoom's cloud or something like that? Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. I didn't know where it was stored.
So
yeah,
is that part of the revision to the open meeting law for these remote meetings that we're required to record?
That's what I've been told. Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, it's been that way since the beginning, actually. We've always been recording them. So
So we've been doing them remotely.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. Since we've been doing them remotely.
Yeah.
Which I hope continues forever and ever, because I sure do like it.
Yeah.
I'd say yes, but I kind of miss getting together with the gang. You know, it was
Steve, do you
But-
just miss the
but-
snacks? Really?
well, all right.
Yes.
Yeah, particularly when Asha was bringing the stuff her mother would prepare.
Oh my God, all those cookies. That was so
Yeah.
great.
But Steve, you ought to try a different, not our committee, but one of the others, and you might change your mind. I'm perfectly happy with the remote setup when it comes to FinCom, for example.
So that you can mute yourself and scream?
Yes, among other things,
Yep.
or curse, or both, you know.
Yep.
Well, you got to understand when you're retired, going to a meeting like this could be a big social.
This is the big social event of the week.
I was going to say something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, give me another 20 years and I'll get there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get started. So first order of business is approving 2 sets of meetings. So we'll do them separately. The first one will be from our regular meeting on July 21st. So some changes went around that. I'd like to make a motion to approve those meetings, or that meeting notes as amended from the notes that Jim sent around this week.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great.
I
Then
I have
Sorry, go ahead.
updated, I have updated those, all of the input that because there's been quite a bit of it lately. Gail, a question about 8.5, is
Mhm.
is that meeting posted online? Or is it not posted? Because it was a sort of a special meeting. so to speak.
it was posted online.
Okay.
That one didn't, I couldn't do a recording though, because we weren't the hosts.
Oh, of course, of course.
Crocker's the host, but
yeah.
it was posted publicly and everything.
I just wanted to be sure I had a place to attach the minutes to.
Got it. All right, so next I'd like to make a motion to approve our minutes from August 5th. That was the special meeting with Crocker. We were just talking about it as amended.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Great. Okay.
Yeah, while we're on minutes, I want to just throw one thing in. Back a month or 2 ago, I was in the town hall and saw Becky and then Eric Stalker, and they were asking me about the status of the broadband committee versus the MLP, and I said, we're both organizations are running together. There's significant overlap, but not complete overlap between the two. And fine, okay. And then I don't know if Grace came by and something was said about, well, how about the minutes for them?
Oh, no.
And so I thought, I don't know how the minutes are submitted now that it's all with this minute software program, but you just make it clear, Jim, if you're the one doing it, or Gail, if you're the ones actually submitting, that these are the minutes for both the MLP and for the broadband committee. And,
Yeah, it usually says broadband / MLP for our meetings.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Um,
Craig will have to be the chair and the minute keeper of
The
his
whole
own
thing.
committee. Oh, dear.
Yeah.
Might be more, Mark, it might be more clear if you just say joint meeting of the 2, and then everybody will understand what that means.
Yeah, and then everything gets posted on this mytowngovernment.org site where everything's kept track of. And we don't have 2 committees. It's called broadband / MLP.
Yeah.
Like, there's not a second one. So
Okay.
that's all we got.
Yeah.
And Grace shouldn't complain either, because I routinely send her copies of the meeting of our minutes all the time, as well as posting them online. So she doesn't, so I don't know what she does with her copies, but she's well aware of how we're running things.
And this conversation was a bit ago. I had something to talk to Grace about, and then later I just run into Becky, and then Eric Stalker comes by. And so Grace may not have been the one that said anything about the minutes. That could have been Becky. So Grace may be fine with what's being done. And so,
Right. Well, since Grace is the one in charge of compliance, I'm not going to worry about it until we hear from her directly saying
Fine.
you're doing something wrong or, you're out of compliance.
okay.
That's a very good approach. If you see the folder that everyone who got sworn in has got, I mean, like, it's like a novel to read. So, it's got to be complaint driven. It'll take a while to read it all.
Yeah. And Graham, did you get your letter from Joe Comerford?
I did, and I called her back. Well, actually, I emailed her back and said thank you, and she phoned me. No, her assistant phoned me back and said no. So.
I just have mine stuck on the refrigerator. I didn't respond to it.
Oh yeah. Well,
We got congratulatory letters for our election.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah. And
So
we now
back
have
to-
Joe's cell phone number, just so you all know.
Yes.
If you
All
need
right.
if you
Moving
need a
up in
late
the
night
A congratulatory letters from Joe Comerford?
yeah.
Yeah,
Really?
to
Wow.
Graham and I for our election to the MLP board.
Don't worry,
Well,
you'll get yours next.
Well, the FinCom people don't get that, so I guess we're in a very special place.
Well, if
But
you
you're
got
not
elected,
elected. Yeah,
You got
this
elected
was
this
for
year.
elected
Yeah, I guess
officials.
so. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
forgot about that.
So while we're back on this broadband MLP, I'm going to the website where it says broadband committee / municipal light plant. And that needs updating because first of all, it doesn't say that there are officially two, and maybe we don't want to, well.
Mhm.
Yeah, so we might want to just go look at that page and update it and think of how to clarify it so that when people are confused by this, it's more clear. I don't know. And you're right
Yeah.
that right now, Ayers and I are the only members of the broadband committee that are not on the MLP.
Right.
Didn't Ayers
Yeah,
resign when he left?
Ayers is gone.
He moved away.
Okay, so I'm the only one left. I would be happy to just say, let's ditch the broadband committee altogether and just have an MLP, and I'll just be an interested citizen. That would be fine with me.
No, let's not.
That could
We don't want to
simplify-
let you slip away, Craig.
I won't slip away. You won't get rid of me. That's all right.
simplify bureaucracy, though. Absolutely true. Yeah. So,
I mean, I'll admit it's confusing to people who don't know what's going on.
I know.
Actually, Gail, you're still a member of the broadband committee, I believe.
I'm sure.
I am, but not
Yeah.
the
Oh.
MLP. So
Oh,
it's I don't know. In some ways it is kind of arbitrary. The broadband committee, the only reason I see to hold it is we had talked about having it as our feeder organization, if we call it that, for future people to serve on the MLP, but we can still do that informally by requesting people to come to, several meetings or a half a year of meetings before they, run for the MLP. Not that we have any control or enforcement of that. But it is a way that we could kind of funnel people to the MLP board if needed in the future. I guess I'm kind of agnostic about it, of if we want to get rid of the broadband committee and just have MLP, and yeah.
No harm. I see no harm in keeping it.
Mhm.
And so, but as Craig points out, the website make it clear that there are these two organizations and list who the members of each are.
Yeah. Tell you what, why don't we don't do anything right now. I'm going I thought that Ayers was taken off of, I had made a request, but maybe he didn't do the final paperwork of sending an email to Grace asking that, so he's still on there. So let me see if I can get errors removed. And then in our About Us section, make a blurb in there about just like an FAQ or something of like, what's the relationship between the MLP board and the broadband committee?
What would the relationship be? Still, I mean, the farm team idea is like what we had mentioned, as you say, but it's hard to explain. It would be hard to give that as the explanation.
Right now, since the two senior members of the organization
That's
are,
right. I think indoctrinating new potential members is probably going to just be something that we end up having to do at the personal level of just people who might be interested or or someone whose arm you can twist. I don't know.
Sorry about that. I was having troubles. The farm team idea is interesting because if we appointed ourselves, then you could say, yeah, we'll have a farm team and we'll choose from that team. But since the MLP is elected, the voters don't have any requirement to pick from the farm team.
Right.
Sure.
So it might suggest an insider trading,
yeah,
which of course it is, but
it is, but maybe it's best not to put that on the web.
Or an open meeting recording.
It's being recorded.
I think it is reasonable to expect or suggest to people that if you want to be considered, if you want to run for the MLP, it's a good idea if you participate in meetings before that.
Sure.
I don't know how to say that, but
We'll just have to tell
Maybe
people
that's-
who are interested. No, I think that's it.
Yeah.
You just tell them. And meanwhile, I would say it simplifies things to not have a broadband committee, given that it's, both of you guys are, Gail and Craig, you're both interested. Without, I don't think anyone's going to join that committee right now until we twist someone's arm, and you guys are not going to. Well, you guys are going to
Yeah.
continue.
And the members of the broadband committee are appointed by the select board to 1-year terms.
Good point.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, I just got my letter thanking me for informing me that I've been reappointed to the broadband committee for a year.
Lord. Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, so did I.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got mine also. I don't know what the best approach is, but
no.
Yep.
Table it.
We can kick this can down the road again.
But if and when we update the I lost meeting host, something
Oh,
happened.
I just shared the screen so we could take a
Oh,
look
okay.
at what the
All
page
right.
looks like. So over here on the right hand side, at least for now, let me get rid of errors on here
Ooh.
and let me make see if unfortunately I don't have control over this part. I have control over the left part, but not this right part. But I can ask the web committee to see if they can just clarify for us that make this say something like board members and have it be Jim, Steve, and Graham, and then beneath it say something like broadband members, and then just have Craig and me listed.
Hey, one thing I noticed when I went on the Wendell website, and I saw that they call their thing the municipal light board, and I kind of thought, oh, well, that getting rid of the word plant is probably not a bad. I mean, light is certainly what it's running all around the fiber. It's municipal. And it's a board, so I would suggest we don't have to decide this week. But
no, I think the MLP, the municipal light plant, is a thing defined in Massachusetts law.
That's true. Yes,
And so I think you do want to. I think you do want to keep the plant.
Yeah.
Well, we would continue as a board that was defined under the MLP legislation, but the legislation isn't actually. Well, it refers to MLPs, and that is for places where there is power and lighting in towns, obviously before fiber. But yeah, okay, we can think about it. But I think there were so many people at the election, who came up to me and said, "What is the MLP? What does it stand for?" And and where are the plants? Or whatever. But anyway, so okay, so.
Yeah, they think we have something to do with the electrical service in town. That's what most people seem to react when I say I'm an MLP member, and they think, "What's that?" So it's a little bit confusing, perhaps.
Especially when we're an MLP board, so an MLPB. So it's kind of yeah. Well, I wouldn't update the website until so.
Yeah, we're gonna just make those minor changes
Yep.
in the meantime.
You bet.
All right, let's move on. So hut report. Graham, how is things going at the hut?
The hut seemed pretty good the last time I was in there. Everything was running well, and the July reports from Crocker had 39 help tickets and questions, which is kind of like about a monthly amount. And I noticed there were 3 canceled phones, which is interesting. That means, I guess, 3 customers have worked out how to use Wi-Fi calling, perhaps, and couldn't see the value that they got from keeping their landline or their phone number. I doubt that's I don't know that's a trend, but there were for July 10 repairs. Or at least there were 10 dispatches, I should say. 9 drops were repaired, and then and the 10th one was probably a power supply, a power knocked out on the trip circuit breaker, probably feeding the ONT, because they didn't say a drop repair, but they did say the ONT had lost its power. So anyhow, there were 10 dispatches for that, which was a pretty busy month. All of them were called storm damage, and they all dispatched in regular hours, which I always like that, dispatched in business hours. Just out of interest, so that got us to, at the end of July, that was the 22nd repair, most of them drop repairs, or the 22nd total dispatches. And comparing that to the year before, at the end of July, there were 18 dispatches. So it's a pretty similar year, I guess. And the other thing from Crocker is there are, at the end of July, 761 subscribers. So still a nice, healthy number. And a couple of seasonal suspensions in those help tickets, and maybe 1 cancellation. I don't know what that detail was. So nothing else to report.
Great, thank you. I had another action item for you that was brought up way back in July about the power feed at the town hall with that weird ONT. You said you were going to check the receptacle being used. Yep. To make sure that it's, I was thinking it was powered by the emergency generator.
I did. It looks like it is.
Okay, good.
Yeah. It's not totally obvious because it's not marked in the emergency generator, in the emergency panel. Well, there's a couple of emergency panels. It's not clearly labeled in the panel legend when you open the door, but when you look at the conduits going back, those receptacles do seem to definitely go through the emergency power panel. So I take that to be, what else could it be now?
Great, thank you for doing that.
I did also, interesting to see 2 fibers coming out of the inside the town hall, and discovered they have 2 ONTs, which maybe everyone knew, or maybe someone knows, but obviously Crocker knows. But there's 2 ONTs in the town hall.
Yeah, if I remember, it's because the police needed a separate feed due to security.
Okay.
If I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure that's why that happened.
Yep, that would make sense.
The town hall pays for 2 services.
Okay. Yeah.
Every month when I get the printout from Crocker of the customers, and everything is $52. Shutesbury Town Hall, $104.
Yep.
All right, that's a nice segue into financial reports, Steve.
Okay, well, our current balance by my calculations in the enterprise fund account is $67,091. And Gail has just put a spreadsheet up on the screen share here. At our last meeting, we talked about the vacation package and for $45 a month, and the restoration fee after 3 months of $250. Crocker had reported that they have difficulty collecting that. And, well, what's the story there? Crocker also reported that there were 80 people using that the vacation package. And I was saying something's wrong with that 80 figure. So I went back through the bills, and I, in the end, looked at every one of them and tallied up how many people have utilized it's what Verizon would have called temporary disconnect, where you keep your account active but don't pay the fee, and so you pay a reduced fee, and so it's instead of and I think it's $50 is what the customer pays, 5 of which goes to Crocker, 45 comes to the MLP.
Correct.
So tallying it from the beginning of time, which is there when we started in 2019 up through July of this year, there are 86 total instances on a monthly basis. So that's where Crocker came up with that figure of 80. It's not like there's 80 customers using it at one time.
That makes more sense.
Yeah, this is like customer months, I guess, subscriber months, call it. So, and clearly it's in the winter time when people use it. December, January, February, and March. There were, this past winter, there were 5 customers using it. The previous year, if we can I scroll this now? Yeah. February, March, and April of 2020, there were 10 customers using it. And then the rest of the year, it's 1 and 2 in there. I did a little calculation and said, okay, how much revenue does that bring us? And for the fiscal year 2021, there are 34, subscriber months, we could say, so $1,530. And the total for the past 2 years, $3,800. So it's not a lot of people using it. And I would propose that we scrap the $250, discontinue that $250 reconnection fee. There are 2 different cases where that could get instituted. One is a vacation home where people are away, not using it in the winter most likely, and so they'll just disconnect their service, come back and reconnect. Those folks, we still can offer this $45 a month vacation package, and I suspect some people might still use that. One advantage is I assume you could keep your telephone number, which still is important to some people. Other people will disconnect, and I'm sure we would lose a portion of this revenue that way. But the other case where that $250 gets charged is on a rental property, rental apartment or house, where for whatever reason, we haven't convinced the landlord to continue paying the subscription fee, the $45 subscription fee. And I am concerned of a case where we get a grad student is told, hey, you're either moving to town to go to the university. Boy, move to Shutesbury. They've got this great internet service. That's where you need to be. And so they're all excited and they rent this property and they pay their first month rent, their last month rent, and their security deposit. And they say, okay, now how do I connect to this great fiber optic system? And they call up Croc and say, well, you've got to pay a $250 subscription fee here because it hasn't been used for 3 months. And go, what? I don't have $250. Anytime you're in business, you can lose money on something. You're going to get stuck on something. But the other side of business is you have your reputation to consider, and that is worth something. And I think having a customer-friendly reputation is valuable to us. So, if Crocker is getting pushback on that $250 fee, I think it's not good that that situation's coming up and Crocker's having to handle this. So
yeah, I asked Kathy a bit more about it, like, okay, well, how big of a problem is it? How often does this happen? And Kathy said that it's only happened a few times where they've waived the fee for a new tenants. She said, exactly the scenario you laid out where the new tenants weren't prepared to pay that. And it wasn't their fault that the property was vacant for 90 days before they moved in. Crocker has been working on updating the landlord list. And she said they've contacted a few landlords when the tenants have given their notice to cancel. So the landlord knows, this is at risk of going to the 250. And in those cases, the landlords have been great about either putting the service in their name or letting the new tenant know who'll be moving in that there's going to be this fee. She said, and this is, I quote, "We recently had a pretty nasty homeowner that put her house for sale and gave her notice. The seller made it perfectly clear that she was not going to pay a fee and it was not her responsibility to give notice to the attorney or the realtor or the buyer of that fee." But she said, luckily the home was sold quickly and there was no need to explain or charge the $250 fee. So, and she says the seasonal homeowners are not an issue at all. Another way we could handle this is to just give Kathy and the billing department discretion about, if you have a situation where it's troublesome, waive the fee. I realize that it means that we're not adhering to some strict policy, but in terms of customer friendliness, I have no problem giving the frontline people that ability to avoid customer issues and keep people happy.
And I would just say yes, but I'm fine that Crocker has the discretion to the authority to use their discretion on when to charge a fee. But say then we've got a fee that some people pay and some people don't. It means, well, if you squawk enough and fight enough, you don't have to pay it. But if you just acquiesce and pay it and grumble, then I don't like that it's an unequal situation.
I think it should be something, because the typical thing when something, in my experience, when services are turned off for a couple of months and you just turn them back on, it was always a joke that, you just turn it back on, but it doesn't work because something else has happened in the months that have gone by. So I would say there should be some sort of turn on fee, because some of them are gonna be problematic. Or
it already is charged. Crocker will charge $49 as a reconnection fee.
Mm-hmm.
We won't, we don't
Which
see
goes
any
to
of that though.
Crocker. I assume that goes to Crocker.
Yeah, we don't see any of that.
Yeah,
That's all
their
Crocker. Yeah.
charge for setting up the bookkeeping aspect of the
Yep.
account.
Oh,
Make
I would suggest some sort of penalty or encouragement to not let it be months and months and months long. And then, maybe 250 is too much, or 350.
How about 99 then? Crocker gets 49, we get 50.
Sure, that would work. That would work for me, but I'd also defer to anyone else on having it higher.
So to clarify, Crocker charges the 49 even if it's been disconnected for 3 weeks because it's a new customer. Is that right?
Correct. Every time, if it's connected for a day, you still have to pay that because it's the administrative fee to switch all the billing information to a new
Right.
person.
Right. So if we were to say we'll just make it a 99 fee, then we should probably make it for all disconnects and reconnects. The rationale for why we're charging that at our end is maybe less clear, but it's simpler because otherwise it's going to be a $49 reconnect fee if this, or a 99 fee if that. So I
Yes,
could see
except-
just
Excuse me, let me just interject. Crocker on like a change of ownership or change of tenancy on a disconnect and reconnect, Crocker adjusts the $52 a month fee that we get. They prorate it to the day.
sure.
Because I'll see a refund to a person at a particular address of like $38.20. And then for like the month of April, and then for the month of April, a new charge to a new person's name at that address for whatever the difference between $38.20 and $52 is paid to. And that's what's paid to the MLP. That's part of why there's the delay in finalizing what Crocker pays us each month, because they make these adjustments throughout the month.
But a change of service, Crocker gets $49 from the customer, right? Because that's,
Right. Yeah.
that's the initiate the whole thing.
Hmm.
Okay, so to play devil's advocate, the risk here is that we remove the $250 reconnection fee, and all of the sudden our seasonal shutoffs doubles or
I think
triples.
that is certainly possible.
And if that happens, reinstituting it later is way harder, right? It's
Yeah.
way harder to roll back something and then put it back on. We're talking about squawking. We're going to have a lot of unhappy people.
Yeah.
In that case.
That's right.
So I proposed scrapping the 250 completely. Then I've said, well, it could go for essentially $50. Gail, you're saying, but there's a potential problem with scrapping it. That suddenly these fives and so forth could become 15s.
The unknown piece in this whole puzzle is the $250 reconnection fee preventing people from shutting on and off their service, or doesn't it matter?
That is the question. I agree.
Yeah.
And we don't know. We have this data showing how many people are using a seasonal rate, but it still doesn't answer the question of, if we didn't have the $250 fee, would all these people ditch their seasonal? And my sense is my sense is kind of that I understand like keeping your phone service, that would be a reason to keep it. And I'm just thinking like the houses at Lake Wyola, but I don't think that I don't think that a lot of those cabins at Lake Wyola are getting phone service. I don't know. That's another piece of data we could look at, I suppose.
Phone through our system.
Right.
Could we get that figure from Crocker?
Mm-hmm. Yep, it would involve, we need a full list of all of the people who get seasonals and then know whether or not those, and then seasonals have a phone number. I don't know. Is it worth it to keep pursuing this to try to find an answer? Is it one of these things where we just kind of make a decision and go with it?
How about this? If someone does push back on it, Steve, and everyone, then the $250 that gives Crocker the discretion to offer it to be just added on as a monthly thing. That would add $12 a month to the service cost, and run it over a year, and that would not be.
Wait, run that by me again.
Oh yeah, so the extra fee, $250.
Yeah.
If it's spread over 12 months, is about $12 a month. You could give Crocker the option, Kathy, the option to just to offer that as a softening thing. That for someone, as you said, who might not have $250 in their pocket, but when you add $12 to the monthly wonderful gigabit per second service, it's not actually.
It's more like 20, but anyway.
20. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, more like 20. You're right. Yeah, but add 20 a month. It's still a good deal. Give her the option.
Yeah, although she already has the option to waive it.
No, I didn't know we'd give. Well, I thought we hadn't. We hadn't quite got to a vote on that, had we?
Well, Gail says that they're already doing that.
They're already doing that.
They're exercising that one. Okay, that's fine too.
Jim, any thoughts?
I think I tend to decide more conservatively on this, and taking away the $250 fee might get us into trouble, as Gail explained, with people who would take unfair advantage of it, so to speak. So I guess I would keep it the status quo the way it is.
Yeah. I have a proposal. Why don't we keep this the $250 reconnection fee in place for one more year? By next year, we're going to start lowering rates, right?
Yeah.
Likely. And when that happens, it will, I think, make this more palatable when we're out of debt and take away. I realize it's small, but some of that financial risk. It'll be less important to spread this MLP fee out between all of our residents, whether or not they're using the service or not.
And I'm good with that. Could you ask Kathy to keep us appraised of continuing pushback she's getting on that?
Yep.
So we just have a better idea of.
Good suggestion. Yeah. How big is the problem? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yep.
And I also think it's better to not be changing things all the time. So if we do all the changes, all the changes at the same time, we're also dropping rates. Nobody's going to say, why'd you do this?
Right. It would be a lovely announcement to make next summer saying our seasonal fee has been dropped and also your monthly fee has been dropped by $5.
And I wasn't going to propose making any announcement of dropping the that reconnection. We just take it out of the text, but we don't broadcast the fact that, hey, you can do, and we still keep the winter fee in there so that use it. Anyway, this sounds fine. And from that, talking about being out of debt, I can segue into the next part of my report, Gail.
Go for it.
Let me just say that Steve's comment about not commenting should not go in the minutes because he didn't comment.
It's been recorded. Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that, but
All right.
okay. So our next part of the financial report. I think you all remember we have two different debt. The town has two different debt instruments out there. One is the 10-year note that we make a payment on every April. The other is the bond anticipation note that comes due in August. So there was a payment due August 20th of, thank you, and I put this spreadsheet up. Gail put this spreadsheet up last month. This spreadsheet I emailed to Ryan May, the treasurer, and Gail Weiss, the accountant, in July, just to say, here's what's due, and here's the amount to pay down the principal by, this $279,000. This is what the MLP has available, and it's from coming from three different sources. And after you pay down that $279,000, it's going to leave a balance of $127,000. It needs to be rolled over for one more year. And I hope a year from now, we'll be able to pay that off completely. And so I sent this email in July. And I didn't get any response. And so I thought, well, I sent the email, and I thought it was pretty straightforward. I didn't think there was anything that should be too confusing there. So on that August 20th was a Friday. On the Monday prior to that, August 16th, I phoned Ryan, just said, well, I just want to touch base, make sure we're on the same page on the payment for the band. And I left this a voicemail, and 15 minutes later, we got a call back from Ryan. Oh, Steve, I got your message. Well, there seems to be some discrepancy on the figures here. Becky told me to pay the band off completely. I said, what? And said, yeah. So, I don't have time now, enough time now to go out for a bid on a new loan here for that $127,000. I said, well, fine. That's, not really my problem. But that $279,000 is what the MLP has to put towards it. Do you know where the additional $127,000 was coming from to make this payment? Well, no, we didn't. But he would check with Gail Weiss and find out what account she was taking that out of. And I said, okay, well, that's fine. I said, well, just, keep me in the loop. Let me know how it's resolved. And that's the last I've heard on this.
Oh dear.
Thinking that, as I say, it's not my problem. It's not our problem. This is remember, the whole debt is a debt of the town. It's not a debt of the MLP. The MLP has just agreed to make the payments, and we make the payments. We budget an amount in our budget. We put figures in our budget for the amount we can pay. So, we don't have another $127,000 sitting in our budget that is allocated towards debt. So I don't know what they did.
So it's all paid off now, supposedly? With mystery money?
You think so?
I was gonna call Ryan back and say, hey, how'd that all work out? But I thought, well, maybe he would call me.
Maybe they took it out of the town's free cash, which I might add would be delightful. I think.
I mean, I'm thinking, well, if Becky wants to pull this
Yeah.
127,000 from somewhere and pay it off, fine with me.
Not our problem.
Yeah.
Doesn't-
It has to be approved by the town,
I was
right?
gonna say, that has to
right.
be
They can't
approved.
just
Yeah.
take it.
One
Take it
little
out of any
problem.
account without an appropriation.
Look,
Yeah, exactly.
there's so much funny business going on right now with the new library. This doesn't surprise me at all,
What?
frankly. Oh, yes. Money is coming out of nowhere to take that barn down and do all these testing and all this other stuff. We haven't, and nobody's approved any of that. It's just being taken from, we don't know even know, we have no idea where the money is coming from to do all these preparations. And there have been no answers as to where it's coming from either. So it's all kind of mysterious right now.
Well, the last thing we want to do is to get the MLP involved in controversy.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Second that, Craig. Steve,
So-
I'm happy to ask the treasurer or whoever you want. I mean, if a few more people ask, right?
Yeah, well,
We'll find it.
let's, so that it doesn't get confusing, I'd like to leave Steve as the point of contact
Sure.
with our financial people to just try to get to the bottom of it. Steve, if you could
Yeah.
keep us,
Agreed, yeah.
just apprised over email of what happens. If you need me to intervene and, make a call to someone, I certainly can. I don't know if I'll have any more clout than you do to move things forward. And we'll find this out. I think that we shouldn't be too happy about this in the way that if it came out of some town account, we are probably going to have to still pay it back. So it's it doesn't really matter. I think at the end, we're either going to be paying it back to the bank from which the loan came, or we're going to be paying it back to the town who paid it in advance. We might save some interest on it. So anyway, let's just put it down. It's all speculation at this point and see how it plays out. This is not a tragic problem to have of our debt's gone. We're just going to have to reconcile it at some point.
I mean, my plan was to follow up with Ryan and on it, but I thought, it's not a high priority because it's not our problem. And it's not a bad situation to be in. So,
I mean, if some fiscal conservative pulled it out of free cash, it's not at all obvious that we would pay it back. Right.
But it can't be taken out of free cash.
Jim would
without
be
an
happy with that,
appropriation.
right?
Yeah, right.
But you need an appropriation.
I agree. There should be an appropriation.
Yeah, that's my understanding too. There has to be. You just can't use the
Has
money.
to be.
Yeah. So, all right.
So Steve, you can ask that question.
Yeah. I'll follow up and see what I find out. Just want to keep appraise you all of the current situation. So that's my financial report.
Great, thank you.
Very interesting.
As usual, very interesting.
We might want our minutes to say something like that we were apprised that the entire van was paid down and this was not what we had suggested, and we will look into the matter. Something to that effect, so that there's a record that says this is not us.
Right, good
That's
idea.
not what we.
Believe me, Craig, I'm definitely going to include that.
All right.
Tim, do you have this spreadsheet in the minutes? I don't know just how this works with electronic minutes now.
Yeah, so what I can do is I can just put this in the chat and Jim can copy and paste it right into the minutes.
Yeah.
If it's on a text document or anything, but
It's an Excel
spreadsheet.
spreadsheet.
I can't including an Excel spreadsheet would be problematic, I think, but just a simple copy and paste would be just fine.
Okay, great. Does anyone see chat in this? Is chat not allowed?
Don't know.
I don't see it.
I'm seeing
Sometimes chat, Yeah, sometimes chats are not included. I don't know why
Yeah.
they would have it
Oh,
turned off here.
Darn it.
Gaylor, Steve, could you just copy?
Oh,
and
wait a
paste
minute.
this into a text?
Yeah.
Just,
Gail, I thought you had said previously that chats weren't allowed because it would be a side conversation and not.
Oh, I bet they turned off, darn it, they turned off that feature. All right,
Mm.
I
I
know what
think-
I'm gonna, yeah, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna take a screenshot of this so that it can be inserted into a Word document very easily, like as an image. And I'll send it to you, Jim.
okay,
Separately.
but a screenshot, I can't copy text from a screenshot. I have to put the whole, it just might be just a
Right.
text file, you know, or
Right.
anything. As
But-
long
but
as I can
that's-
copy and paste elements of it, that's all.
Yeah, but no, that's what I'm saying. Just don't mess with it. Just take the whole thing
All
as
right.
as an
A
image.
picture, add it as a picture.
As a
to the-
picture.
yeah,
It's a
Okay.
picture.
To the minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, to the, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let me just make a note of this so I don't forget it. Image for Jim. And if it doesn't work for you, Jim, just, let me
Okay,
know. We'll
all right.
figure out a different way to get it to you.
Sure.
All right, so I'll just run through the manager report items, and then we'll move right into our discussion about the backhaul and network improvements in the meeting with Westfield. So let's see, Craig, I got your email about the phone considerations for the contract to update everyone else. Craig has just been letting me know about some oddities with the voicemail system for our VoIP landline users that just aren't great. They're things like you can't access your voicemail remotely. The fact that you can get a sound file emailed to you is nice, but you can't call into it. A lot of people were always unhappy about that one. We need a way to delete group spam messages. After vacation, Craig had 43 spam voicemails left.
Yeah,
That you have to listen
And
to
I-
the whole, yeah, you want to say more, Craig?
yeah, you have to listen to at least the voice stamp, and then as soon as it starts, you can hit delete. But you have to do that 43 times, which is rather tedious.
Wow.
So that was one of my concerns. The other concern was that 23 of those 43 were the exact same spam message. And halfway through my trip, I sent an email to Crocker Support saying, "Can you do something about this?" And they said, "Well, we've put a block on all those numbers, but it won't do any good because they're all different numbers." So I appreciate that spam filtering is a very difficult job, but if we were to go out to bid, I would look at the quality of spam filtering as one of the deciding factors. I don't know how you judge that, but just to let Crocker know, we'd like their spam filtering to be better, and we'd like their voicemail to be better. And those are two things that might make us decide to go out to bid. That's yeah.
Yep. So I have a running file called contract considerations. So
Yep.
in there's things that like the improvements we want for our technical support. So I've added a header of phone service. So I have group delete for spam messages, need remote voicemail access, and better spam filters. And we can refine those when we work on the contract. Anything else to add? Of things to,
Yeah, the
that we
only
should
thing is
try.
you might pass these complaints along to Crocker now. If they
Mhm.
want to upgrade us before our thing's over, that would be fabulous, and it might make us more inclined to not go out to bid.
And also looking at what the 911.
Oh, thank you, Steve. That's
responses.
right.
You know, we still are investigating this at the town end, but that's potentially something that, and it probably should be in the contract that the 911 service I don't know how we'd word it, but, you know, essentially equivalent to what you would have gotten from, what would you get from Verizon, the 911 service from a landline phone in Shutesbury goes to the Shelburne dispatch.
Steve,
we
did
don't-
you discover that that's not the case? Is that
We don't know yet what's happening. Walter Tibbetts has contacted the state 911 people to see what happened with the call that I made to find the routing, and they're still working on that. So
Yeah. And Steve, I'll also ask in my meetings with Tim if he knows how it works. So between us,
Sure.
we'll keep that on the list.
mhm.
All right. Other things. Earlier this month, I got contacted by the family that owns the Sand Hill Road land. It's the only developable land on the east side of Sand Hill. There's a couple of plots on kind of like if y'all recall, our fiber ends at the last house.
I don't think this is going to work.
Oh yeah, we can see it kind of, sort of. So
I
there's,
should have made a copy of this and send it. I can do it for next month if you want to.
yeah, hold on one second, Steve. I think I have a scheme of this already. Let's see. Oh yeah, lot 8, Sand Hill.
Yep.
There we go. So here's the 106 and 105 Sand Hill Road. This only shows the down here at the bottom shows like the whole big picture, and then here is the zoom in of this same section. So Sand Hill Road, of course, goes all the way across to Pratt Corner Road, but our fiber ends right here. Okay, right
But
here.
we have service to 106.
Right. And the last pole is about where this D is.
Yeah.
And so there's this one plot of developable land. And when we were deciding whether or not to build out Sand Hill Road, Steve looked at all the records and said, well, there's only this plot of where we think.
He said there weren't any. I missed it.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry.
Well, it's okay. It's all right. It's not, we can still serve it. It's not a huge deal. It's not like it's way down here somewhere near Pratt Corner. So there's nothing happening right now. There's no permits been pulled. There's no nothing. It was just a question from the people who own this land saying, what if we sold this? What would happen? And I said, yes, we can get fiber to it. The cost will depend on where the houses are on the road, and just left it at that.
Did you say 3 building lots? Is that what they know?
That's what they're considering breaking it up into.
It has
based on
1,500 feet of frontage, so they could get that and probably more out of it. It's,
Yeah.
Yep.
I had the acreage, which I don't have right.
So anyway, there's no action items to take now. This is, again, not an active development. It's not even on the market. But something to just bookmark for the future. This is the one stretch of developable place in town that may end up falling under our new development policy that we just voted on a couple months ago, where we would have to work with the zoning board and planning board and everything to come up with what the new developments would have to pay for. Anyway, I am just bringing it up to make everyone aware of it, that this could happen sometime in the next few years.
A similar thing just down our road in Wendell. I'm on the very last pole with fiber, and a house that's off the grid, as Jim Hemingway knows.
All
The
too
house
well.
that's off the grid is 6 poles away, and the person who has bought that house is now paying National Grid to put up the 6 poles. About maybe a little less than $20,000 to get service there. So anyhow, it does happen, and sometimes happens invisibly to us. So
Yeah.
Now, on Sand Hill Road, situation is a little different because there are poles running the whole length of Sand Hill Road, power wiring on them. Fortunately, there is no telephone service. So there shouldn't be any make ready. If we wanted to hang there, we would have to get permits from National Grid. But since there's no telephone service in that stretch,
the poles may not be tall enough. The poles may not be tall enough.
Now, they actually years ago ran the feeder for this end of town up Sand Hill Road. So those are good poles. They rebuilt that feeder since I've been here. So, and with nothing else in the communication space, I don't think we would have any make ready issue. Graham, you can take a run down there. It's not
Yeah, I definitely will. Yeah.
Well, so in a case like that, if those people wanted Verizon service, who pays to put the Verizon line out there?
I don't
Correct.
know.
And if they do request that, in particular, if Verizon doesn't charge them, then we would have a make ready situation, right? And so we want to coordinate carefully.
We absolutely have a make ready process, even if they're only power poles, because we have to rent from the power. If they're only owned by the power company, then we have to rent our space.
I said we would have to apply, make whole permit applications. It looked like a fairly simple process.
Yeah, it may well be if they're fairly new poles.
Yeah.
It's another thing to keep an eye out for, because y'all remember the fun we had during the make ready process and how long it took. So as soon as we get a inkling that these developments may be sold, we should think about starting make ready applications on these. Even if there's no work, just getting them processed and getting the license could take up to a year.
And we would ask the developer or whoever is the principal of that thing to pay, because as we know, the fees for make ready, we wouldn't want to do that just on spec, would we?
I don't know. In terms of process, it might be worth it for us just to pay for it as soon as we know that the development is on its way.
I'd immediately tell them what it's going to cost. You just push it to the developer.
You don't know how it's going to. I mean, say nothing's even happening at this point, so we don't know how it potentially could be developed. But one way could be the current owner would just subdivide the property and sell off individual lots, in which case you'd have 2-3 new owners, each of whom was just applying as an individual. And it wouldn't, I suspect we're not going to have a situation where a developer comes in and subdivides the whole thing, puts in a little cul-de-sac road or anything.
No.
It doesn't look that big, does it?
Yeah.
Yep.
I will look at the cut sheets for the end of that cable. It'll tell me how many fibers are spare. What capacity is there? I'm sure I would think there'll be spare, but
I did go and get the property maps for the whole length of Sand Hill Road and look and got the assessor's database and looked more carefully than I did a couple of years ago when we were setting this up. And all the other property owners other than that is Town of Amherst for the Atkins Reservoir watershed. Wemco owns quite a bit of the bottom of Sand Hill Road frontage. So, I suppose Wemco could put a development in down there, but doubt it. WD Coles does have one spot where they squeeze in a little access to the Wheelock parcel with 161 feet of frontage, which is below the current zoning requirement, although they could use that to do a subdivision back in there. So, you know, if it were boom times, colds,
Well,
like,
if they
could
put
be-
a subdivision in there, then it definitely kicks in that
Then-
it's their,
then
it's
it's
their, it's
on
on their
them.
dime.
yeah,
Then it's clear it's on their dime.
yeah.
All right, so anyway,
My only concern with this is I want to make sure somehow somebody has some skin in the game in coordination. So for example, with this Sandhill plot, if somebody went ahead and called up Verizon and said, put phone lines in, right? And then later on, we have to come in and do make ready, that would be ridiculous. Whereas if they are faced with paying the make ready, then they have an incentive to say, okay, Verizon, make sure you do this so that we can do that and not pay the fee. But if we're paying the fee, they're going to say, no, I don't care. It's not my problem. My
right.
make ready fee. I
What's
mean.
the
Yeah.
likelihood that a new customer would, a new homeowner would even get Verizon service as opposed to getting their service from us? You know, is
It
any,
depends. If it depends. If Verizon puts it in at no charge, they're going to say, sure, put it in. I would, even if I don't end up using it.
I don't think
'Cause I've got
Verizon's going to
options.
rush to do that. I think
Well-
Verizon would want an account number and a deposit.
So, well, again, if it were me, I'd say, fine, sign me up for a month, get it installed, and then turn it off. Just so that I've got options, right? I mean, it's the prudent thing to do.
Yeah.
Now,
So-
if Verizon's going to charge me $2,000, then I'll think
Yeah.
twice.
Yeah. So anyway, another reason why we just need to keep an eye on this one, if there's any movement at all down there of all of
Right.
these questions are going to need to be answered in the coordination with the utilities, et cetera, et cetera. So,
also, I'll add, the property is in chapter 61B, so it can't just be immediately sold and developed. The select board would get the right of first refusal on it, which can be passed on to another conservation organization. This is the remaining portion of a huge parcel that the Gage family sold to the town of Amherst for watershed development. And so this is how I didn't notice it before. I thought all of that land had been sold to Amherst as part of the watershed protection for Atkins Reservoir. I didn't realize there was this one little parcel left. So, you know, if it went on the market, wouldn't be surprised if Amherst wanted to add it in for their watershed protection anyway. So
So I think this
knows,
brings
but-
us back. This brings us back to square one, which is that probably every year we should send a memo to the zoning board and any other committees that are relevant saying, if you know of new developments, please let us know immediately.
yeah,
Mhm.
I've already let Kevin, what's his name, Rudin know, who's the assessor. As soon as he hears a whiff of a new house, new development, anything coming up, he said he would let me know.
Great.
So,
Great.
yeah.
That's fine, I think.
And just one last point, if anyone is ever talking about getting Verizon and thinking that it's free, it will drive up their cost of make ready when they want broadband. So you'd be crazy.
If they're paying for it.
Well, the Verizon part could be free, but then, well, someone will be paying the make ready and the installation, and it shouldn't be the broadband. It shouldn't
Well,
be.
but if it's just a
Well,
single
this
family,
is,
just a single family home, one home going up, then that we do.
All right. Well, okay.
yeah, so again, it could be Harry. Let's put this discussion down because it's
Yeah.
all speculation.
Oh, yeah,
It's
yeah.
something that's not even happening. But anyway, something else
Yep.
fun that we can deal with when that time happens.
Okay.
yep.
All right, so I want to make sure that we have enough time to get into this discussion of the backhaul and network improvements. So I did want to talk about security audits, but that's not a priority. So I'm gonna save that till the end if we have time. I know that all of you attended or most of you attended the meeting on Friday. Thank you for going. I've read through the documents, and I just have a couple of questions about it, and then let's talk about it. So in this proposal, so this is the proposal that was sent by WG&E about what they're proposing to do and what they kind of want an answer to fairly quickly. And I see that there's two parts to this, or not two parts, but two things that we pay for. One is that they design and analyze the equipment identification for implementation, and then there's this competitive bid part in it. Am I understanding this right? That what they're proposing is that they design out the redundancy for network pathway and also backhaul, and then they're going to build an RFP based on what they design here for $8,587. And then they're going to put this out to bid for vendors to do the work to implement it.
Yes, and it wasn't obvious when I first read this because the competitive bid asterisk, you can't see where the asterisk relates to, but that competitive bid was just is just for this thing that they're doing now, because Westfield Gas and Electric will do this process for 8,500, but this other crowd, whoever they're called, I looked them up, I couldn't find them, they would do that work for 16,000. It's the same. This is the reason why Westfield Gas, you're getting that this
Okay.
This competitive bid is just, it's just some smart person at Westfield to sort of say, well, let's touch base with what someone else might do it for. And I'm not surprised that it's twice the price, because that crowd is going to have to send a team out and work it all out. And Westfield knows what's going on, so Westfield is half the price for that design process.
I see. Okay, so this is
it's confusing. I totally
yeah. So this is not a proposal to bid. This is a proposal to do the whole project, and they're putting this bid in there for us for comparison to say, hey, if you go out and you have somebody else do it, this is what it would cost.
Exactly right. Yeah, this was to reassure them too. I mean, so someone at Westfield Gas and Electric want to make sure that, well, what we're doing for $8,000, what would a professional outside crowd cost? And it would cost about twice as much, and that's not surprising, because that outside crowd has no idea where the huts are, has no idea how to find the fire. It's like Westfield has all the documents already. So
okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah,
I was really
it wasn't at all clear, and there was confusion at the meeting. A lot of people didn't know what didn't understand that either. So.
Got it. Okay. Now, I was happy to see that it seems like they're putting backhaul sharing as a part of like the forefront of this whole process, that they're not just focusing on pathway redundancy. And then there's the separate documentation that Jim Draw sent around, kind of as a legal agreement, in my understanding, was explaining how the town's relationships would work with an IRU. If we implemented this, then the Jim document would kick in for how we'd agree to run the ring. Do I have that right?
I know Jim was working on some IRU kind of thing, and that's fine. If there's such a thing, and we read it and like it, then no problem with that. I can't imagine it would have any unreasonable content. But if it did, then we'd push back and ask for an amendment.
All right. And so my third question is, are we certain that we want Westfield to be the group that does this? Because we were also exploring this exact same thing with Matt Crocker, to do this exact same thing, which is, hey, can you design out what it would be for our 3 or 4 towns to work together for pathway redundancy and backhaul sharing? So
Well, Gail, I think we should tell them that Westfield has popped up with this, pushed somewhat, driven by Wild West. But I think this is fantastic. This is fantastic.
Graham, are you saying we should tell Matt? Is that what?
Yeah, that it's happening. Just out of good faith,
Yeah, I just wanted to understand.
Yes. Sorry. Yeah, to be to be to put our cards on the table, because I think this is a fantastic value for what they're proposing to do, and they actually. Well, the really good news is, and it was Jim Draw who checked whether Nokia equipment could share bandwidth via a protocol called MPLS, which gets around the ISP problem of domain name service constraints that we talked about, and we don't have to understand why, but MPLS uses a different addressing sort of a method that allows all the ISPs to be thrown in the same mailbag, and it gets to the right places. And Jim Draw had looked up to see that Nokia equipment could do that, and so I went and dug through the material that one can find online about our E7 system with Calyx, and Calyx equipment can also do MPLS. So there may be other ways to do it, but it's great that Nokia and Calyx can do this so this is absolutely we can divide bandwidth on a 10 gig or a 20 gig using at least MPLS, and there may be other protocols, but until I actually looked and found, oh well, there is one, then we have this choice, and that's fantastic news. So that was the best news out of the meeting. I knew it was probably possible, but to see that it is possible, and it's great.
Yeah, I was really pleased that it seems you can do cross ISP. You don't have. We want whatever we have to be completely ISP agnostic, because we may not be with Crocker all the time, or WG&E, and it sounded like it was all very, very easy.
It's fantastic. Yeah. And here's the other thing, Gail, that Westfield Gas and Electric, I was surprised the degree to which they were willing to be agnostic. I mean, that was Crocker. We don't know, I mean, Crocker's in business and they've got to look after that interest, but Westfield Gas and Electric are proposing something that is ISP agnostic, and therefore Crocker shouldn't have a problem with it.
Well, Westfield Gas and Electric has a vested interest in making sure it's ISP agnostic, because the other towns need access to our connection to the, what do you call it?
Crown Castle. Crown Castle.
Right, and Crown Castle, right. And so if it's not ISP agnostic, then those towns are incentivized to switch to Crocker.
That would be true. Yeah, to split bandwidth.
And,
yes,
and Crocker may not be so magnanimous, because they might like to force those other towns to go to them, right?
I know. Yeah.
So, but yes, I agree. We should tell Crocker it's agnostic. This is great. It's good for everybody, even if it may not be totally in their best interest.
Yeah. And here's the other thing I would say is that Westfield Gas and Electric, with this proposal and a very concrete price, and they have enough people on the bench kind of to actually, if they say they can do it, to do it. Crocker's got a smaller bench, I believe. That there's not as much depth in, as far as I could tell.
No, you're right. They don't have like a team of network engineers.
Yeah, exactly.
Like what Whip City has. Yeah. Yeah.
And
okay.
Oh yeah, this is good. And just out of interest, even though I was talking to someone at Leverett, they were surprised. They were only invited at the last minute, and they didn't understand what was going on. And I tried to tell them that, well, they probably weren't invited because they're not key to this thing. If they decide at some point or other to do that, it suits them to share bandwidth, then they could come along later. But who knows what they'll decide? But they were totally on their back foot, only hearing about it from who knows. I don't know, and it doesn't matter. But you know, they're on the periphery, and they would have a higher expense because unlike us, they don't have the fiber already connected. So
And you have 2 huts.
And
yeah,
it was
well, they've got
interesting.
two.
It was interesting at the meeting. Westfield was not aware of the connection that Leverett has to Crown Castle through the Shutesbury facility there. They didn't even know that was happening. So,
Yep.
But
I think it's important to have everybody on board.
yeah, and Leverett seemed quite interested. So instead of it costing us 2,800, it likely would just be like, you know,
2,100 or so.
$2,050. So yeah,
I would suggest we vote on the proposal as is, and if it gets cheaper, then it'll be even better. But I think this is a great deal right now. So I'd be happy to. Or I think if we just, it'd be great to be able to tell Westfield, you know, if we decide to do it on the basis of this, and if it gets cheaper, then great.
Right. This and okay. So what are the downside? Talk me through the downsides of, you know, signing this proposal and saying that we'll pay 2,862 for it. Is that at the other side we get a pathway redundant network design that's ISP agnostic. We get to see the options for backhaul sharing that are going to be built into this. At that time, if we don't like what we see, we can just say, nope, we're not doing this, correct? All we're paying for here is the design of
Correct.
it.
Yeah, and
Okay.
keep in mind that other towns might ask to use our interconnect fiber, which we have agreed in principle, though we don't actually have any. I look back at my notes. We don't actually have any of the MOUs. We never had to proceed that far. We just all agreed that we would make MOUs or IOUs when the time came. But so far, Wendell is the only crowd who have sent us paperwork, right, Gail? And that was just to make connections at our hut. So
Yeah, we have that with well,
Wendell. It was
actually,
Wendell.
yeah, actually, hold on, let me check it. We may have it from all the towns. Let me just check other towns. New Salem. Yeah, well, okay, we don't have an IRU, we have an MOU.
Yeah,
with
okay.
New- yeah, we have an MOU with Wendell and New Salem, so we're partway there.
All right.
Is
Is that the MOU that I saw when the connections were made in the hut? Is that's only an agreement to connect into town fiber? It doesn't say anything about what the understanding is about that fiber. That's the one that I've seen from Wendell.
correct? Well, it does say about the fiber, like, you know, anything breaks in your town borders, it's up to you to fix it, and our town borders, it's up to us to fix it. But it is it's not detailed, and that's all we have. So it's not like there's a second MOU.
Yeah, exactly right, about the uses and the purpose of that
Right.
intertown fiber. Yeah. So anyhow, further down the road, but this to get that level, to get a network design and you know, conceptual stuff and details for that amount of money. That's you know, you pay an engineer a lot of money to do that. In fact, the competitive person, the competitive bid from whoever they were called,
Transmedia.
Transmedia, yeah, I couldn't find them. I mean, there's a Transmedia, but I don't know who they are. But there's a PR company called Transmedia, but that can't be them. So anyhow, it's good value. What is being offered there?
All right. Did anybody mention final outcome costs? I have a good handle on what backhaul costs are on a per month basis, and so I understand our kind of long-term savings on that. But did anyone toss around any hardware and build costs that could come out of this design? Just ballpark, like, are we talking like $50,000, 12,000, 100,000? Like what?
They didn't
They
throw a number
seem-
at it. And they
None?
didn't,
But-
they didn't throw a number.
But they seem pretty clear that the ARPA money was going to cover all that,
Oh, yes,
Oh, yeah.
that was the really good part. Yes.
right?
ARPA
So,
money.
so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter so much how it is if they're right.
Exactly right. Okay. But in answer to your question, Gail, the piece of equipment that would have to go into our E7 Calyx thing was an E9-2, and I didn't bother to look up what the list price is on that, but I'll bet it'd be about the same as our E7-2. What was that, like $9,000 when we had that one that was potentially burned out or fried?
Yeah, it was it was under
Yeah.
10. It was
It was
under
under
10.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
$12,000 by the time someone
Yeah.
comes out and installs it and tests it and kicks it and does what they got to do. Less than $15,000. Not much money to be spent on the fiber unless Leverett wanted to join, and they would have costs to just get if they wanted to loop through Wendell, then there would have to be some splicing out on the road. I don't think any of our 3 towns would need to do any splicing. I think that's all in place now.
Yeah.
So it's just patching in the hut. And
Right. What's our time? What would be the timeline? Let's just pretend we sign this week, move it forward.
2024, if it's ARPA money.
No, I don't think that's what Gail was asking.
No, but they said as soon as it was approved, and the only delay that they were worried about, or that they said, was at the moment some things are slow to 6-month delays because of material chain of
Right.
purchasing stuff because of COVID things. But so they're not sure how long, without knowing what equipment they'd have to buy. They're not sure exactly.
But maybe the question just be how long for them to get the design, and I think they were just talking a number of weeks, wasn't it, like 3 weeks maybe?
They said 3 weeks.
Okay, so 3 weeks for design, and then maybe sounds like 6 to 9 months after that for equipment implementation.
They weren't sure how long it would take. It's a lot of equipment's on the shelf, even in the
Right.
difficult times. So I don't know what Calyx is doing.
I will throw out one concern I have is listening as the discussion went on. Jim Draw mentioned the possibility of using Verizon as a backup source. And this response from Westfield, hadn't thought of that. And, this is something Matt Crocker has already been talking about. So I'm hoping that Westfield is doing a thorough job.
Jim's talked about this before. I can't believe he hasn't talked to Westfield about this before now.
He might not
I don't know
have.
what's-
He might not just have talked to Thomas Flaherty. So, but yeah,
he
you're right.
talks-
Totally.
He talks to them all the time, and he doesn't let things slip through the cracks.
Oh yeah.
So,
Mm.
anyway, who knows?
No. Anyhow, yeah. Imagine getting 10 gig. What the price of 10 gig from MBI would be, and their reliability level wouldn't be all that great. So I can't imagine that anything. Yeah, I can't imagine getting a big pipe from MBI would be a very good value.
Yeah. All right. Well, the nice thing about this proposal, it seems like all those are on the table as options. We have multiple backhaul providers to choose from.
Yeah.
So, once I'm in my mind right now, I'm trying to think of how we should include Crocker in this. Of obviously, I'm gonna let them know. I'm gonna send the proposal and say, this is happening. So we're looking at alternative solutions to pathway redundancy and sharing. I'd like Matt, I think, to talk to them is kind of an oversight almost of like, are they thinking about all these things, and are they missing anything? And I hope that Leverett joins this party as well, because if they do, we will also have the services of Holyoke Gas and Electric, who I respect greatly in terms of their network knowledge as
Jim
another.
Crowley was at the
Yeah.
meeting, Gail.
Yeah. Yeah, he was very, he was very
Yeah.
enthusiastic.
Oh,
Yeah.
Jim, I missed him. Oh, I love Jim.
Yeah, oh, yeah. He was the
Yeah.
only Leverett voice there, really.
Yeah, he
Well,
did
Margie
seem
was
quite
there.
positive about it, didn't he? Yeah.
Margie was there.
Great.
Oh, that's
Okay,
right. Yeah,
I
Margie
didn't know
was
that. Okay.
And Rob Brooks.
Rob Brooks, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did talk to Rob, so I got his take on it.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Oh, good. That puts my mind at ease to know that Jim Crowley was there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would suggest we vote on accepting that price. I would put that as a motion for the three-town price, and so that we can tell, so that we're not the slow ones to delay proceeding.
And
The
I think
the other towns thought that just
authorize the director to proceed with this.
yes.
Yeah.
The just out of interest, the other towns thought that probably just the MLP manager could say yes to it, and that would make sense to me as well. But seeing we're meeting, I would suggest we vote on it.
I'd be a lot more comfortable if this was an official board vote. I don't want to sign anything like this without without that.
Okay.
But one quick thing I want to talk about before we do this is somewhat related, is we have this quote hanging out about a moving our connection down to Leverett. And my understanding is that this whole thing is kind of going to be not useful anymore when this Westfield plan gets up and running. So I'm not really inclined to spend $2,000 to move this down to Leverett when we're just removing a tiny little, pathway vulnerability.
Agreed.
But what I would like to do is bump our MBI backhaul up to a gig, because the 250 megs we have right now that serve through our hut is not adequate to keep our network going in the case that Crown Castle goes on. So, we're paying for this backup that's barely going to run the phones. And so this is going to be, it's not an insignificant expense to pay for adequate backup backhaul. And it'll be for the next year or so until this
And
whole
we put it
Westfield
in our
thing.
budget this year.
Right.
So we can go ahead and do it, and we have the money in the budget to pay for this.
Great.
call increase.
And Gail, I agree. It's not worth moving to Leverett until we
Okay,
know what the
good.
schedule is for this other.
Good.
Yeah, I've never been that concerned about that 1.5 miles of overlap on Leverett Road. That stretch of road is open and clear. It doesn't have the big trees that Pratt Corner and such have. So I'm fine with this.
If they have to, Gail, if they have to change over their equipment in the town hall to get a gig, then I would strongly suggest that that they move it into the hut on the wall in the hut. They would put it on the hut wall instead of on the wall in the basement of the because if it has to hold up for the next 6 months, it's just so vulnerable right now to being unplugged by anyone. Like the cleaner comes in and has to use a shop vac, and suddenly the backup disappears.
Okay, I will ask about that. If there's any upgrades at the same time, move it into the hut. I kind of don't think there is. I think it's just, we pay for more bandwidth, but I will ask.
Yeah, the equipment might be sufficient, but the equipment looks old and dusty, and that's
okay. So I'm gonna ask Tim to enact this to get us the full gig of backhaul backup as soon as possible. And in the meantime, let's take a vote on acceptance of this proposal. Would someone like to make a motion?
I propose we accept the Westfield Gas and Electric. Oh, so we're talking about the Westfield Gas and Electric proposal, right?
Correct.
Yeah. I propose we accept the three-way division price that is proposed in that.
Second,
Great. All in favor? Great.
Gail, one further thought here. You were talking about sharing this with Matt, but I noticed it's stamped confidential. I don't know how Westfield would.
The details of the piece of paper are the confidentiality part, Steve. Not the fact that we're discussing it. I think no one could suggest that that's. I mean, we're on an open meeting talking about it right now, so it's like it's not that confidential, and Westfield knows that. So
Yeah, I just to be respectful of their documents, I won't send the document. I'll just basically take this whole thing and paste it into an email for Matt saying this is what's happening.
No.
And
just keep in mind that Matt wanted an RFP to even start to do this and so we were many steps away from actually. Then it would have been on us to kind of do what Westfield Gas and Electric has and talk to other towns. And I mean, there were a lot of ducks to line up to get to this point. And those ducks have all been lined up now. We didn't have to lift a hair, and we certainly didn't have to write an RFP, and we're not locked into anything. So this took a load off of. This is a wonderful little gift there from all of that.
all right, great. So this, since it has like a watermark and stuff on it, are they going to send a final version of this? Is this the thing that we want to sign? Does anyone know logistics, or should I just reach out to Westfield?
I would contact them.
Okay, and remind me of I know
Tom Flaherty is
Tom
the principal
Flaherty.
of this
Okay,
authority. Yeah.
Tom Flaherty, and I assume Katrine is involved too.
She was, yes.
Okay. Okay.
And you should tell them that we're going to mention that this is happening to Crocker, just once again out of whatever, and that, as you said, they should talk to Crocker if or their network engineers when they're thinking of the details should definitely talk to Crocker and chat about whatever they need to chat about.
Great. Yep, I will. All right, good.
And just out of one last point to that, and that is, what is the implications? What would be the impact on Crocker? Is there would be one more. There would be at least one more piece of Calyx equipment that is kind of already something that there shouldn't be an extra charge for what would be running, because it would still be. They always go to Calyx using our Calyx extra support thing. So it's not really, we already have 24/7 from Crocker on network on our hut. We shouldn't have to add any extra cost for this. And once again, it was Jim Draw's comment to somewhat to the same degree that Westfield Gas and Electric wouldn't be able to add extra charge because they already have 24/7 on those huts. So it's kind of like it was a very useful meeting from all that aspect.
Right. Our essential support contract from Calyx would cover, I assume, all of the Calyx equipment we use, no matter what.
Exactly.
The one tricky part might be that if the essentials contract is for us and Crocker, we might need to get some kind of a rider to add on, Westfield to talk to them, or
Crocker would continue to be whoever our network operator is would continue to be the network operator. So it won't end up having Westfield Gas and Electric probably won't have to do a thing because it'll just be working and it's going off independent, agnostic of ISP. So it's kind of like, I think it's once it's running, and you don't have to worry about it as far as my understanding. So.
All right. All right. We have about 20 minutes left. Does everyone have a little bit more energy to talk about one last thing about security audits?
Yep, and I did look into it a little bit. I mentioned that I would, right? But do we want to spend a bit on security? Good question.
Yeah. So the last meeting, we were talking about the fact that if we want to move forward with this, with getting a third-party security audit on Crocker's practices, both the physical practices like locking doors and making sure employees have key cards and criminal record checks, but also the high-level software concerns, that any kind of security audit is going to have a huge spectrum of what that could mean. We can't just go and say, hey, we want you to do a security audit. It really has to be spelled out of what that is. So none of us really know what the best practices are when it comes to a network audit, and what we'd want kind of on the other side in terms of deliverables for this project if we farmed it out. So I threw out some ideas of how we could solve this issue of like just what do we do next. So Graham, I said, if you know the details of what to ask for, you could write up a quick list and then I could turn it into some kind of written proposal.
Yeah.
That
was what I was going to speak to, what I did find out and what I did in talking to people, that when you look at the pieces of what of where the vulnerabilities are, just in general terms, the systems are obviously, Calyx stuff is pretty robust and pretty unhackable. I asked Nat Crocker to what degree they were careful with all the hygiene of looking after of security within their organization, and people leaving and whatever, and he said, as you'd expect he would, diligent and very, 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 very diligent. It would be hard for an auditor to come in unless it was like, for them to actually go through the books and check who,
right.
Except for having policies, it would be hard to actually, it would be expensive to do that. With the end of a contract coming up, we wouldn't want to spend that money on the network operator who might be ending their thing. So it wouldn't make much sense spending $5,000 or $10,000 on sending an auditor, a security auditor in on Crocker. And then the other thing is to say is the real vulnerability. When you look at the risk stuff, it's people like, it's all the 750 whatever customers who if we get hacked, or if we get phished, or if we just have crummy passwords and stuff like that. I mean, the biggest bang for buck would be for us to do a bit of an education thing to all the customers, to just remind them that having crummy passwords on your email or any of the really important things is a huge vulnerability to them and to the town, because once someone in the network gets phished and suddenly gets a denial of service sort of an attack on, once stuff spreads in a virus within a system like ours, then it can quickly fill up the 10 gig pipe with just a lot of noise. So I think that first security thing. The biggest vulnerability and security would be any of our weakest links in the customers, and a few people told me that. So, yeah.
Okay, so do you think that we should kind of put aside the going after a security audit of Crocker itself and just focus on an education movement with
That would
our
be-
users? That's what you're
yes.
saying?
That would be a really good idea, because that's a huge vulnerability. And some people probably, even though, every now and again, someone will talk about a scam, the thing you don't want phished is your contacts list, for instance, because that would be a lot of us.
We're mixing apples and oranges here. Crocker's exposure is a completely different question from the
Understood.
individual customers doing these things. So I think we should talk about the Crocker one all by itself, and then talk about educating our customers as a separate thing.
They are two different things, but as we get to the end of a contract, but I'm saying from the point of view of risk assessment, that risk of our customers is suddenly turning the whole place. I mean, UMass has melted down a few times with people who just had to be shut off from the UMass network because stuff had infected their system, and that was just blocking up everything. So it's in looking at risk assessment, there is Crocker, but we're on the end of a contract with them. I wouldn't invest a lot of money in auditing someone who, I'm
not so sure about that, because one of the things we're going to be coming forward with soon is deciding whether we want to just renew our contract with Crocker or go out to bid. And knowing that they were susceptible would color that judgment, right? Or knowing that they're rock solid could color that judgment.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
then
I think, and again, that is completely separate from the customer vulnerability. Those are two completely different questions.
totally different things, but
we should talk about them. We should talk about them separately. We shouldn't be saying, well, we should do this instead of that. They're completely separate questions.
Totally separate things, but vastly, I believe, and various people told me that our biggest vulnerability is that thing that we wouldn't be paying attention to if we were totally focused on auditing Crocker. So.
All right, so what I see here is that Graham is kind of looking at the entire risk assessment and putting in the customer vulnerability as part of that whole thing, whereas this discussion originally started just focusing on, Crocker's vulnerability. So I think either way, doing education to help our customers get better at security is a good thing either way. But we still have the question of, well, what do we do about Crocker or whatever ISP we're using to make sure that they're using best practices? And another way that we could approach this is, not do anything now with it, but then make our contract more robust in terms of spelling out best security practices. Our current contract doesn't have that. I think it just says actually best industry standards or something.
Yeah.
I'm glad to pursue something more formal now, but we need to decide if we're going to do it, how fast it needs to get done, and how much we're willing to spend on it. Well, I guess also how much work we're willing to put into it, because the more I kind of hear about this, it could become a big rabbit hole of, an enormous proposal of a third-party security auditing system, doing everything. And I don't think we want to do something enormous here because of the cost and also the fact that I think we have other priorities here. So what do you think?
So could we get HG&E or somebody to point us to something that says these are the things you should be concerned about. And then we simply send a memo to Crocker saying, are you doing X? Are you doing Y? Are you doing Z?
We tried that
That's
already.
free.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
yeah,
well, HG&E didn't want to get involved in auditing Crocker themselves. So I'm not suggesting that. Or they wouldn't even give us some things to look
They
up.
were pretty hard no on that. They basically
Nice.
said like, yeah, we're not touching this. Here's some firms you could reach out to, but we're kind of back. It's this catch-22, right? Like without doing the audit, we don't know what to look for. And these companies won't get involved unless we have a proposal. We can't do the proposal because we don't know what to tell them to look for.
Right.
So I'm kind of stuck on this one of what to do
just
with
out
it.
of interest, a proposal from some expert would absolutely suggest some very expensive. They'd be cautious, so they say this is what you really want to do if you want to be totally secure. You got to put in this sort of firewall and that, and it would be it would be easy to spend $50,000 or $100,000 on the extra layers that they would suggest.
Wait. You're saying 50,000 to implement these fixes.
Oh yeah.
So I think what you're saying is it's going to be expensive, so we just shouldn't know.
Oh no. Well, it'll be that problem that a little bit like hearing that this is what you really should be doing, and then you kind of feel like anxious that you're not doing it because I know UMass spent immense money, and it was it was labor intensive to put it in place. What they're doing with firewalls and watching everything going by, and it was a bumpy road. We're just not that big or that rich operation. So
how about this? I got some names of some security firms from Holyoke Gas and Electric. What if I just reach out to them over email, kind of describe the predicament and just be transparent about it? Like, we want someone to audit our ISP. We don't even know what to ask for. So we can't really give a proposal. Have you done this? Do you have any kind of package deal? What can you give some advice here about how to go about this?
It's a great idea. Yeah.
All right, great. I will write some letters.
I will just mention that, one thing we do know about Crocker, earlier in the discussion is talk of, employee security and so forth. And we did get a call from Crocker earlier this year, I think some months back, that they had dismissed an employee who did have access to our hot. And so although they had no knowledge, their idea that he might do anything nefarious, they suggested we do change the combination and password for the hot, which we did. So, it just told me, okay, Crocker is aware of that, and they are thinking, oh, if we let this fellow go, we should let Shutesbury know for them to take necessary steps. So, just seemed
yeah, that was reassuring, wasn't it? Yeah, I agree.
Great. All right, that is it on my list. Anything else for our last 5 minutes?
Next meeting, are we going back to our third Wednesday?
We are. So that would put us at September 15th. So we'll actually talk again in just a couple short weeks.
Right, and 5 p.m. on that day. Is that 5, right?
Correct. Yeah, we're moving to the earlier 5 p.m. time.
Cool.
Okay.
All right, everyone. Great to see you after our little vacation hiatus. And yeah, I'll talk to you in a couple weeks.
Motion to adjourn.
Well,
So moved.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.